And I think you're going to pick that up through all of our panelists as we go through. So what I'd like each one to describe, and we'll just go on my Zoom panel. And I have just 3 broad questions for everybody, and then we'll open up to questions from the audience. But can you describe your journey before, during, and after the doctoral program? We'll start with Doug, Karen, Ericka, Katy, Dwayne, and Dudrick. That's how you're ordered on my thing, but if you switch up, I'll mix it up, okay?
Okay.
We're ready.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Douglas Koch. Before I started, I was interested in biochemistry. I went to school to work in the pharmaceutical industry. I have a master's in medical biochemistry. I worked in the industry for about 5 or 6 years and found I didn't like it. So what I did is I went and transitioned to a medical school where I was there for a couple of years, kind of floundering, and then got involved with educational technology. Then I was tapped by the provost to do our Blackboard Learn migration, and just kind of stayed with educational technology since. I liked it, so I decided to get a master's at LaSalle University in instructional technology management. And in that process, I developed a voice and an interest in the field, so I decided to get a doctorate. And that's how I came across, well, at a conference, actually, I found NJCU, and I liked it because it was a program that, for me, I wasn't interested, or I'm not interested in K-12. So it was a program that really involved everybody. It didn't have this teaching certificate at the end, which wouldn't have been really valuable for me. So now that I've graduated and there's a pandemic going on, educational technology is incredibly important. We are a school that has 3 campuses in 2 different states. We're trying to merge our medical program. We have all different types of programs, and we are not prepared for online. So it's just all of a sudden, Doug is like the most important person in the world. So, and I'm sure with everybody else. So that's kind of my journey. Just start out someplace else, and now I'm here in an exciting place.
Thank you, Doug. It was very well said. Karen, you're next on my Zoom screen.
Yeah, and like Doug, I also have a medical background. I have a nursing degree. My very beginning was nursing because I liked science and math and that kind of thing. But I always wanted to be a teacher in the back of my head. So that was sort of in there as I went in and out of teaching jobs at private schools. I finally at a public school teaching science. And a doctorate was kind of always on my list. I don't sit still for long because there's so much to learn and do that here's a new opportunity. Before this, I was in science classes. We, as a scientist or science people and teachers, I think especially, we always kind of want to experiment and try things. So I was always one of the first to use technology and happy to adapt and try something, letting the students know they were a big experiment, which I still do, because it's, especially with technology, and especially now, and some people not knowing as much about technology, there's always, the one thing about technology, always something will happen that you have to kind of troubleshoot. So that kind of was the way I worked through, most of my science teaching career, and enjoyed that, and got my master's in elementary science education, and then just continued to try to do different things. And as much as classroom teaching is fabulous, I wanted more than that, and ended up being an educational coach, a tech coach, education coach in the school. And then at the same time, I was pursuing this doctorate because we had a friend of mine, I had looked at it and it looked really interesting and exactly what we were looking for, because it was very technology centered and kind of combined education and technology. You have your IT people who are really good and you have your educators who are really good, but they really need to be somebody who can do both and understand both of those things. So this program really did that. And so it's been quite a journey and continuing. So, and especially as Doug said, with the pandemic, it all of a sudden has become probably the most important job in education right now, is to help people, professors. I'm working as an adjunct now. I'm working with the STEM program at NJCU. So it's very important and exciting to be in, while it's a horrible situation, there's a lot of exciting things that we're going to be able to help people with.
Thank you, Karen. Ericka, Dr. Collado.
Hi, good morning. So So I actually have a business background. I did not want to be a teacher ever. And when teaching found me as a Spanish teacher, and I started my career as an adjunct instructor while I was still, working in business. So I started little by little. And to universities, long story short, I become certified in K through 12. I fell in love. I love the profession. I pursued a master's degree in world language education, and after several years, and I was presenting at conferences, and I was always one of those teachers implementing technology, innovating. I thought I was ready for a doctorate, thinking that one day I would be ready to be a college professor full-time. That was basically it. I'm still a happy classroom teacher, an adjunct instructor. So I found NJCU. I checked different programs. I had completed my bachelor's degree and master's in NJCU, so it's very special to me. But in comparing all the programs, I decided that it was the best option because it would give me a lot of freedom and options. I did not want an administration degree or more specific, and because of the program, I saw that I would be able to go in many routes. So that's how I chose the program, and they chose me, luckily. And I couldn't be happier because it did give me the space to explore and to grow. And right now, I think I just already said it. I'm a classroom teacher of Spanish in a private school, grades 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Having finished the doctorate allow me to design and teach classes in robotics and coding after school during summer, as well as become sort of like the tech expert within world languages. I get called to talk about tech, which I'll expand a little bit more later. So it's been a positive experience.
Good, thank you. Katy?
Hi, everyone. My name is Katy Blatnick-Gagne, and I currently live in Iowa, but when I started the program, I am a Colorado native, and I was living in Colorado. I had recently had my second child, and my husband's job moved us to an area where I had decided I was going to be a stay-at-home mom for a bit, but at the same time still wanted to potentially pursue a doctorate, which had been on my list for quite some time. I have my bachelor's in family consumer sciences education, so I had taught in high schools, along with working at the Colorado Community College System office as the program director for family and consumer sciences education. In that position, I oversaw all middle school, high school, and post-secondary programming that dealt with family and consumer sciences. One of the things that I did in that position, and even as a teacher, was I was always one of those early adapters, adopting various different pieces of technology, even just applications to be used. And when I would do professional development for high school and middle school educators, I really wanted to make sure that they were also harnessing those new technology applications. One of the things that I wholeheartedly believe in is that our education system should not look how education looked when I was going to school. And I really want to push educators to think outside of the box, that you're not going to be the lecturer that's standing up in front of the classroom, that you really have to engage students in a different way of learning, because their world is different than what our world was many years ago. Before I even graduated from NJCU, I received a position at Texas Tech University, and I went there as the director of the Family and Consumer Sciences Curriculum Center, which is the only curriculum center in the nation that deals specifically with family and consumer sciences curriculum. That was, we wrote curriculum for middle school and high school courses. It's sold across the nation, and actually we had some international purchases also. From there, I did some consulting work in Iowa, and Iowa was hiring at their Department of Education, and I decided I'm going to give it a shot and see what happens. I liked that work when I was in Colorado, and in February of 2019, moved to Iowa in the depths of one of the coldest winters that they had ever had, and started working at the Department of Education, and I oversaw the health science programs at the high school and post-secondary area. And I just recently was able to get back into the family and consumer science realm. And one of the things that I have been doing as of late is helping people or helping organizations put on their virtual conferences, much like this. So we're spending, days where we're putting together the products, having people do the workshops, etc. And I also recently did a keynote conversation with family and consumer science educators in North Carolina, just on introducing technology into their classrooms. And that also related back to work that I had done in my dissertation on including microcontrollers in family and consumer sciences, fashion design and merchandising courses. So I continually keep tagging back. I actually came to this program kind of by a Google search. And then I went through and I was reading course descriptions, and I thought, okay, I'm either going to go the administrative way because I already had my master's in admin and supervision, or I'm going to go the ed tech way. And the ed tech is what really excited me. And it really, truly, honestly was a Google search that did it for me, that popped up NJCU. I'd never heard of the university before. And I thought, you know what, this is going to be perfect. It's going to fit in well with what's taking place. And I don't regret a single step of it. So,
thank you, Dr. Davis.
We just get myself off mute. Hi, everybody. Thanks for just inviting us. Hey, glad that I get to see all the beautiful faces. And just say, congratulations to all the newcomers, the new cohort members. Really, really excited. I remember when I was there, I was really nervous. I was really ready for the work. And I guess the journey that got me there was my coaches and, family from a long time ago. I grew up in the Bronx, migrated there by way of Jamaica. 9 years old, I started playing football, and I took it all the way to Syracuse University, and I ended up playing in the NFL for a little bit. And I decided to leave the NFL because I wanted to be in education. It's not a story that you typically hear. A young kid. I think I was 21 years old at the time. I walked into the NFL office, the Detroit office, and I said, "Hey, I think there's an opportunity for someone else." And I drove about 14 hours from Detroit to New Jersey, and I didn't know what was going to happen. And in about a week, I became a teacher's aide. And in about 4 months from there, I was teaching, technology. I went to Syracuse University where I studied information systems. And my brother was always kind of like that individual that was ripping computers apart, and I would see it and I looked up to him and I said, "Hey, you know what? I know exactly what I want to do." And just like you have a vision for yourself, and then you're going to execute and you move on those things and you adjust as you go. And that's what I did. I studied information systems, technology, and management at Syracuse. And I knew I wanted to help kids similar to how I was helped. And so that's how I got into education. In New Jersey, not plugging this, but I am plugging it. There are great ways to get your certification. And so, we have lots of reciprocity and all those things. So come over. And I got certified and I was teaching. And then I decided to go to business school. Because I really love systems and processes and resources to help folks do their jobs better. And I think that's what technology is. So you have assistive technology, you have advanced technologies, and it just allows you to do things better. So what type of multiplier effect could we have if, as you're learning your pedagogy and honing in on your pedagogy, if you could then support 10 other individuals to do their jobs better, the multiplier effect that could have on education and young people. You can go from 20 young people to 200 young people with that multiplier effect. So that's how I looked at it from a business standpoint. And so I got my MBA from Baruch College, and then I started to kind of go up the ranks in terms of management and operations and devising systems and building out networks. And then, I just wanted to live out my mom's dream. When I was 9, she said, the only reason why you're here is to get an education. So I said, let's go continue and get a doctorate. So I took a few years off and got in a few admin certifications, and then I came across NJCU, and it was the perfect world because I believe in this approach, and that if you are in healthcare, technology, or education, I think you can transcend a lot of the challenges and be able to have like a high value impact career. So I decided to have a career that covers both, and that's educational technology. And NJCU had that program, which was perfect And that's how I got into NJCU. And just met a lot of great people. And so, after the doctorate, right now I'm sitting as the Chief Operating Officer for a nonprofit organization that manages schools and programs in New Jersey. And I also serve as the Executive Director of Finance and Operations for a public alternative charter school here in New Jersey. And so, systems, technology, resources, being able to share those things, that's what I do each day. If folks can do their jobs better and it's easier, then we can impact more kids.
Thank you very much, Dr. Davis. And next is Dr. Edwards coming to us from the Bahamas. So, one thing Dr. Edwards doesn't know is that we want to ask when we're going to have our summer institute at University of Bahamas. When the pandemic's over, correct?
Yep. First of all, I'd like to give a shout out to Ericka and Katy from my cohort. Without your cohort, without the collaboration, without the time management, you will never make it. That's key advice to you guys. Collaboration and time management. Background. I'm coming from a technical background, and I was the only Bahamian chosen by a telephone company to go to Canada, whereas the rest of us go to London, schooling. I went to Canada to learn to make machines talk to each other, called hierarchical systems. Software and hardware talking to each other. My technical background. Rest through the ranks, etc. Became an executive engineer and basically introduced the Bahamas, the central to southern Bahamas, to digitizing, which is being pushed by NEC, it's being which is also being pushed in North America through AT&T, Canada through Northern. So I was trained by those guys in technical issues, and I was trained also in sales and management there. Of course, they wanted their products to fly, and so they made sure that we were clean with the vertical services that their products supplied. So I'm trained both in technical. But I'm going through, found that basically I didn't know what I measured or what did I like to, and I kept finding jobs on the side teaching. And I taught for University of Western Days, I taught for quite a few tertiary institutions, and I never knew what I measured up. Looking for that, we all have an assert button, we push our button. Am I doing it right? Am I measuring? Am I contributing? And you get all kinds of questions, and your assert is supposed to say state, just the current state, yes, no. NJCU, in short, gave me a chance to answer the questions that were coming, that were being pushed by my assert button. Am I measuring them up? Am I contributing? Do I know enough to really move into education, something that I like doing, giving it. NJCU. It's a yardstick that you get in the doctoral program, allows you to platform where the whole world can see. Qualify yourself to be here, to carry others, to contribute further, etc. All right, so basically, I just want, Dr. Shamburg is gonna ask us about key things. I'm gonna probably come back and give you something from a document that I submitted. I hope he shares it with you, section B, which is like the summary of the key things I think you really need to comment on, etc. But that's my take. My background, you got my background. I'm both technical and business, etc. And basically, I'm open to helping people grow, share, and whatever I can do, Dr. Shamburg, I'll do that. I'm open.
Thank you so much, Dudrick. I appreciate it, and we'll definitely get back to those questions. All right, I'm going to mix it up a little bit just to break it up. So I'm going to go across in a zigzag here. I'm going to start on my window. I've got Katy, Dwayne, Dudrick, Ericka, Doug, and Karen. Okay, so we'll go that way. Katy, the next question is actually going to combine these two questions. What advice would you give to students starting, and what advice would you give to students working on a dissertation now?
All right, excellent. Well, I think for those of you that are that are in that starting, congratulations that you've made this decision. And for the cohort that I was in, I think one of our biggest strengths was the relationship that we were able to develop as a cohort. We continue to talk with each other. Every single person is engaged in some way or some form. We have meetups, although I typically don't get to New Jersey very often, but there's many times that I've received phone calls from the beer garden and the cohort members are sitting there. So developing that relationship, making sure that you have people that you can talk with, that you have someone that, you can give a phone call to. Very important, especially as you're doing group work along with, just the assignments themselves and what ideas and things can come out with that collaboration. Some other pieces for me that were extremely important because I had 2 small children at home was that my husband really supported me. So ensure that you have someone that is in that background that supports you. And, for me, it was, Brad, I need you to take the boys to the park for like 2 hours because I have got to get some stuff done. Make sure that you're doing this for yourself also. I had some people in my family that weren't overly excited about going back to school because they thought you need to stay at home and take care of your family. That's what you chose to do. But this was something that was extremely important for me in myself. And so getting the doctorate is something that I have pride in, and that, my husband was there to support me in. So make sure that you have that support structure also and reach out to others. I think for both dissertation and for those of you that are just starting off in the program, make sure that you are organized in some way. We had someone in our cohort, kudos out to our good buddy Greg, who every single course that we entered into, he would put together a table, and that table would have the assignment, kind of some topics of it, and when it was due. And that would go out to everyone. And that's how, I personally use those all the time just to keep track of what is due, when it's due, what do I need to keep on my radar, etc. On the dissertation piece, I will tell you, I was part of the Family Consumer Sciences Education Department faculty at Texas Tech University. They are the only university that offers a PhD in Family and Consumer Sciences Education, which is a pretty big deal because there are very few FCS educators, like true family consumer science educators at the university level anymore. And their program could run a student 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. They had students that were still in dissertation phase and they were in year 8. So I was tasked with putting together an online course that helped move those students through dissertation. And one of the things that for me was really effective was that we really, at NJCU, it was broken. You have semester 1, semester 2. Here are the tasks that you need to do. You need to complete this. And that was one of the things that I implemented in my online course, is really getting things on a schedule. Make sure you're talking with your dissertation chair. You can never have too much communication. There are many times Dr. Shamburg would receive an email from me like, I'm stuck. What do I do? What does this happen? Just even, phone calls, because I was in Colorado. I wasn't able to go meet face to face. Let's have a conversation about what it is. What do I exactly need to have to you and turn into you? So keeping that communication open. And then for really both and all 3 cohorts, you just have to do the work, grind it out, get it done. And each step along the way just gets you closer and closer to walking across that stage and receiving that degree. So that's kind of that's the advice that I have in those areas.
Great, thank you. Dr. Davis, would you like to add anything? What are your experiences and advice?
I would just say, stay true to your core, and at the same time, be open to learning new things. Maybe like many of us here, we have systems backgrounds and we have highly technical backgrounds. And writing wasn't my strong suit, right? But that's a challenge that you decided to undertake. And starting is a big part of the process. And you should all congratulate yourself because you decided to start. So stay true to the fact that you decided to do something that not many people will ever do or choose to do. And definitely lean on what's true to your core. What are you interested in? What excites you, lights your fire, that you would do at any time, when you're sleeping, or when you're by yourself, when you're with friends? What are you thinking about? Because if you can find ways and common connections as you're going through these different courses, like statistics or research methods or all these other things, if you can in some ways connect that content and that skill in those areas to what's true to your core and your interests, then that body of literature for yourself in the end will be helpful as you're hopefully working on your dissertation. So, and be open to that change. So I think those are the things that I would share. And remember, you're here for a reason, and find and just stay true to that core and know that you're going to push through. So that's what I would share as a helpful tip.
Thank you. Dr. Edwards, what would your
Okay.
advice be for starting or finishing the program?
Starting and finishing. I wanted to do during, but anyway, let's say.
Yeah, no, same thing. Sorry, I meant it for a beginning, or feel free to.
Let's go during. What I'm going to give you a list. I like a list, and basically like how to. First of all, it's all about optimizing your time usage, etc., knowing your stress. Here's the list. You must be on top of the course even to a year in advance. Got to have the schedule. We had a good guy, as Katie said, Greg, had the list, etc., and we stuck with it. You must communicate with your peers. Learn to communicate. Kudos to Debbie, Greg, Collado, Katie, Antoinette, Gigi. You must agree with the academic point, but dare to be a contrarian. You won't expand unless you can argue, unless you can see the topic from another perspective, not just you, etc. That's expansion. Dare to be contrarian. I learned that from Ericka. Ericka would very often, I remember Dr. Ziegel's course, 1 minute manager, etc. Ericka popped up, you know, Edwards told us about him and four, just some that and all of it. I remember the contrarian. Ericka was always there with that other view, etc. We learned from her, etc. You must communicate with your teachers. You heard Katie. Open the channel. I'm weak with that. Okay, open the channel. If you won't make it, collaboration. Okay, you must document. You can't keep everything in your head, but in your phone. Book purchasing when, what, cost rubrics, etc. And those interesting targets, participation opportunities you would like to be in, but you didn't. Just gonna finish now, etc. Avoid personal issues. Sometimes some people are closest to other people and you seem to be left out of a group and all the rest of it. Avoid personal issues. That you don't get time for it and it really hurts you in the phase of whatever you do in your professional life. Right. Next, if you have a problem, you have a chair. Dr. is very good with that. Very understanding and very, very helpful. Okay, Dr. Shamburg is very good. I use these two people. Whenever I had a problem, I go to Dr. Shamburg and Dr. Fingers. Okay, now, the last one, prepare for the QRC early. Prepare for the verbal and the written early. 3 years comes down the road very quickly. And so what you're gonna do, you're gonna start your GoDaddy website or whatever, start documenting early so you don't forget and you can expand, track, at will, etc. And if you have these all prepared and you actually go over them, you see them, you're prepared to answer Dr. Shamburg, Mr. Edwards, what you learn about. Yes, what you learn about that. And you can give him passionate answer from a individualistic, a very microcosmic, a very macrocosmic perspective. Lastly, etc., etc. Learn what it is to be an educator. Learn what the ED is supposed to give you. Learn mechanics, Learn Dewey, learn Bloom. Have them on the back of your hand. There are some feelings you must walk out with, etc. But says, I know what it is that we do. I know where my feel is. I know what we're doing. That's really, in a nutshell, section B of the document. I hope.
Thank you very much,
Okay.
Dr. Edwards.
Jury. Okay.
I'm going to move on to Ericka. Thank you. That was a great wrap up. Ericka, what advice would you give?
Yeah, well, I like to play devil's advocate sometimes, and yes, the cohort model is great, but only you know what you need and how you learn and what you're there for. So what I encourage you is to set your intentions this week. Take some time to think of what you're really looking for. The cohort is a support system, and it has its value, but sometimes we're there to grow. You're there to grow, and sometimes you have to step back and do things differently. So don't be afraid to question, to challenge things that don't make sense to you. You know, it's a very individual, personal journey. Yes, it's about the collective, but you as part of the collective being unique. And it's important that you find that what got you here with us, chances are it's not going to get you out. You have to think differently. You have to stay true to yourself, but also have an open mind, think differently so that you can grow and complete the program. And I think what I'm going to say about dissertation, it's similar to what Katy said. Once you agree, once you find your chair and you have your dissertation team, listen, trust, and get it done. You know, that's not the time to get into arguments or disagreements. You just listen and trust the process.
Great, thank you. Karen and then Doug. Karen, do you have any words of advice for people starting or wrapping up the program or in the middle?
Yeah, kind of everything. I agree with everything everybody said, and it's very true. And I think if my dissertation writing self could talk to my sitting in a seat brand new cohort 5 self, first day or during Summer Institute, I would say all those things. Especially, I think the most important is to be organized. And as Katy said, take time for yourself. And I would, make a space for yourself somewhere where you can go and just be there, where everybody knows that's kind of your space. Take note when you're taking articles, even now for something, and you're doing research. Stay organized, like Dr. Edwards said. Make notes about everything, document everything, and especially when it comes time to write your dissertation. You'll think, oh, I'll remember that, and you maybe will write a couple of notes about it, but you won't remember, or you'll remember revisionist history. So it's really important to write everything down and just kind of keep a log. If you open a doc and just add to it. And the support of your cohort, you'll make friends that will be supportive, and also there'll be people that you'll want to do things a little differently to. And like Ericka said, you need to go away from that and stay true to yourself and kind of keep your goal in mind and why you did this and what you're doing it for. And that may change. It really, I wanted to do what would get me through the program, as Dr. Ziegler would say, and Dr. Shamburg. It's like, you want to get this done. So once you decide what you're going to do, stick with it. You'll come up with a million other things you could do, but just stay with it and you'll get it done. Yeah, right, Ericka. It's just, there's so many things to research and I want to do all this, but stay the course, pick one question and focus in and just do it. And follow the deadlines. The deadlines, I have to say, were great. I talked to a number of other people who I know went through doctoral programs, and once they got into that last year, they got no direction. They had no structure, and it made it very difficult. So very few of those people graduated with a doctorate in the time that was allotted. They went a couple of years out until they got it. So those timelines are very helpful, and really use them to guide you and keep you focused, and you'll get it done. It'll be here before you know it.
Thank you so much. Doug, anything to add? What's your advice?
Yeah, I have two things. One, building what Dr. Collado said, the cohort model is fantastic, but don't let yourself fall into the mindset of having that be an echo chamber. Don't just agree with what other people say. I think it's really easy to do that. We all kind of want to just boost each other, or just sometimes maybe take the easy way out. Do challenge each other and yourself to come up with new ideas. And don't see it as being adversarial. Think of it as being collegial when you question somebody else. And also, this isn't something you can do alone. It's very personal. It's very selfish to spend all this time and effort away from your family, from work or whatever, just all on you. So in that time, make sure you do make, chunks of time or experiences for the people that are supporting you, that love you, that you can't get through without it. I know for me, it was a really difficult time at the end, and I could have done it without the people that were supporting me, family, my husband, my friends, my cohort members. So just make sure you think of them and keep them with you in the journey.
If I could add, just to, I think some folks asked the question in chat, like, how do you handle things that are hard? And essentially what I would say is, what is your rhythm? I found a rhythm of like my week, and I kind of knew what I would look forward to on Saturdays. And so what is your rhythm? And stay on your rhythm. Whether it's working out, you create a habit, your habit turns to, your character essentially. So what is your rhythm, and make sure you don't get off your rhythm. If you fall off your rhythm, get back on your rhythm. And I think you'll be all right.
Thank you. Yeah, so the last question, I hope we could bake those answers in. We only have about 19 minutes left. I thought we could take some questions from the audience are there any, there's some questions in the chat, but is anyone using the Q&A feature? Let me see, I can click this. All right, yeah, so I have a good question here. This is to Dr. Davis. Your story shows that you weren't afraid to take a risk to make a change in your life. Can you please speak to that and share more about what the transition was like? Did you need to plan financially, or were there other steps to put in place to be able to make that transition? Also, were there any unexpected pitfalls that came up when you needed to navigate, and how did you do that after leaving the NFL and switching to teaching?
Yeah, let me answer that in kind of like chronological order in some ways. When I switched from the NFL, it was really a hard decision. You're living a dream for a lot of other people. I was the only kid at the time out of the Bronx that, made it to a Division I college. And then when you drill down, you're the only, few in the New York State that make it to the highest level of competition in that sport. And so it took a long time to get to a place where folks would be okay with that burden being lifted off your shoulders. And so when I left, I felt free because, as Dr. Z would say, I was smelling the cheese as it was changing, right? So pay attention to that. That is true. So, the lead was no longer my cheese, right? I really wanted to continue learning. So when I switched, it was more so I had all this free time that I had to like fill, and I filled it with being around young people. I filled it being in education. I filled it with filling my knowledge gaps. And so the transition, the only thing that was difficult about the transition is really about staying busy for me. And just also give you perspective, I'm a single man. And I don't have kids at the moment. And so I just want to kind of contextualize it that way, that it is a whole different ballgame when you have a family and kids, right? And I was able to sacrifice. So the transition, in my opinion, wasn't as hard for me because I'm used to doing multiple things. From a financial standpoint, I would tell you right now, I'm not a financial advisor, but I would say look at the income-driven repayment plan, all right? Just go look it up, especially if you're in public service. And if you're teaching, do it, look into it, look at your advisors, talk to your advisors, get in there. My approach was I didn't want to outlay all the cash, but I also didn't want to take on a lot of debt. So I found a balance. I'm not a financial advisor. You can figure out what works for you. And I wasn't afraid to take the leap because it's something that you just, in some ways, you're thinking about and you're planning theoretically, and then it just feels right. You wake up and you're like, yep, this is it. And the program was just perfect for me. And you kind of know when you know. And so living, like, being true to the fact that you can plan, you can think, you can do, and repeat, is going to make you feel good about the rhythm and the process that you're on. So hopefully that answered the question. I know I did in reverse order, so hopefully it answered.
Oh, very good. Thank you. I have another question here. They're popping up here to Katy. Katy, how did you navigate, they're popping up left and right, but let me finish. Let me get back to this one. Katy, how did you navigate the switches from states and jobs and juggle that with a family?
Well, my husband would potentially like to choke me a few times, but I have to remind him he had us move too. So, early on in my career, there was just something. I tell everyone I'm a product of career and technical education. My mom is a retired family and consumer science educator. I spent as a stater my junior and senior years in high school. At the time it was FHA Hero, now FCCLA. And I actually did not go to college to become an FCS educator. I wanted to go into communications and went into FCS. In teaching, it was just very easy for me. And I think a lot of that was because I had that structure and that I saw what my mom did. So I had moved myself. I knew that I wanted to get out of the classroom sooner than later. It was also something that I know that I can go back at any time if I want to do so. So moving into something like the state system office, I got really actively involved with state organizations and national organizations that deal with career and technical education. So I was always trying to stay at the front of everything that was taking place. When I was going through and getting my doctoral, doing the program, we lived in a really remote area in Colorado, in Alamosa. It's the highest high plains cold desert that exists in the world. And I knew that I would have my doctorate, but there were very limited opportunities for me. And so through conversation with my husband, we had both agreed that we would start to look other places that were larger. We didn't want to move back to the Denver metro area because it was becoming just astronomically big. We weren't really into that. We didn't want to have that for our family. And when the opportunity came up at Texas Tech, it was just one of those that I thought, this is going to be a chance in a lifetime. Something like this may not come back around. What I did learn down there, and because I wasn't necessarily sure, do I want to go into post-secondary education? What is it that I wanted? If I had stayed at Texas Tech and attempted to pursue a 10-year position there, they are a tier 1 research institution. So I was going to have to dive into research. And I wasn't necessarily sure that that's where I wanted to spend my time and really have the pressure of, you have to get tenure in 5 years or you're going to be gone, because that's how tech worked. If you didn't get it, they cut ties and off you went. So really what we did was we moved to places that would provide better opportunities for our kids, along with ensuring that my husband or I would have a good opportunity moving higher up on pay scales. Right now during the summer, I can work 4-10, so I have 3-day weekends all the time during the summer. Pieces like that were important for us. So it was really, again, lots of communication and partnership between my husband and I to make those decisions.
Thank you. I have one last question for a specific panelist. I have a question for everybody. This one is for Doug. How did you manage dancing on the edge, in quotation marks, working in the medical and educational technology fields? I think that meant, I have this little comment, dancing alone on the edge, you're kind of out there isolated. How did you pull that off?
I'm not sure I felt so isolated. I mean, I isolated in what way, I guess. I'm not sure I quite understand the question.
I think the gist of it is, how did you manage being in, merging these two diverse fields together? Medical education, educational technology.
I stopped one. I stopped the biochemistry. I wasn't working in the pharmaceutical industry anymore. I was before work.
I think they mean in current position. Well, that's how I'll translate it. Like, you work at a medical school and educational technology. How did the two overlap?
I was in the biochemistry department, supporting the department, and just got more involved with, started with Blackboard, helping run the courses, and it just kind of grew from there. We were a much smaller school then, so you had the opportunity to kind of grab hold of whatever you wanted to. We had some people transitioning out, like the one dean or vice dean who really brought Blackboard into the school. So he just kind of passed things off to me as he saw or became more comfortable with me doing things. So it was just serendipity that I had an opportunity to start learning these new things and just kept on taking on more responsibilities. And then just out of the blue, the provost said, "You're responsible for this." Right now, I'm managing the integration of 3 campuses, our DO program, our medical school program. We've been told we need to run as one program across 3 campuses. So I'm in charge of merging the programs as far as computer-based testing is going. At the same time, we are looking at doing a migration from our old platform to the new platform. At the same time, there's a pandemic going on, and we can't do testing on campus anymore. We can't have students on campus anymore. So things just kind of, for me, just fell in my lap, good or bad, and just kind of run with it. We don't really have a choice right now, so.
Yeah, thanks. We have 10 minutes left, and I just wanted to throw one question to everybody. This was a question to everybody, I guess. Can you share, and I guess if everyone can answer it, like, just think, I'll give you a minute to think, 1 or 2 sentences. Can you share best practices and advice when working on team projects? So while you're thinking about it, I'll lay the groundwork. You're in a group. You didn't choose them, all right? You have some fireballs, some reluctant learners, some reluctant participants, some mavericks. You know, you have a nice diverse group in your little group of 3 or 4. What's some advice besides avoiding them or complaining to the professor? What's some best practice and advice for working with team projects? And I know I have a few people from the same cohort here. So, no names will be used, okay?
Dr. Shamburg, I don't mind.
Eric, I see your hand up first. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Dr. Collado.
Yes, the first thing that came to mind is, I think I learned it after the doctoral journey or during the process. Share space, but take space, meaning that share space, listen to understand, and but also make sure that you take up space and you speak up. So to finding that balance in collaboration and teamwork of like allowing others to, you know, to have their moments, but also you come in and do your thing as part of the team.
I would just add, I don't know, maybe it's an anomaly, but you know, I loved every single team that I was a part of, and maybe it was different for everybody else on the team, but no, I think there was a system and a rhythm. I'll go back to rhythm. There's a synergy that ends up happening when you see what others are really good at. And some people might be great proofreaders. Some people might be great at the data analytics. Some people might be great at the I don't know, the writing, right? So some people just love doing certain things. So I think the first place to start is, okay, so what does everyone want to do, right? And then also set a timeline and be the individual to lead by example to meet the expectations that you've set in terms of timeline. And I think when that's done, you have synergy, you have like complementary skills, and people actually enjoy doing the things that they're tasked to do or they asked to do. And that's worked pretty well in the groups that I've been in.
Thank you. I would agree with both what Ericka and Dwayne have said. I would also state, you know, make sure that you communicate and what expectations are. I know there were some times when everyone had their things done when we were waiting for one person to get their in. So make sure that you set your deadlines as a group ahead of when your deadline is. And then just like what we're doing in today's education world, give grace and know that, you know, every single person operates in a little bit different way. I learned a lot from working in groups, so bring that in, but just like everyone else has said, you know, do the same things.
Also, let me pitch in and say that one of the things I learned from Debbie, who's not with us now, is that you have to be a little bit supportive. You set the deadlines, and you have your time frame, you have your expectations. Okay, task, time. But sometimes people aren't in line in terms of capabilities or understanding what you said. And so you need that person in there, or leader, the group, whatever, to say, hey, can you look at it from this angle? The way they do that is make a world of difference, etc. And I know, Katy, you almost became famous. You're the drill sergeant. You would tell them, I want it now, I want this, and this, etc. And then you cleaned it up. And they didn't do it. You actually cleaned it up. Well, that worked. But since we're all here to expand, I would also think that you need to factor in someone who can say, hey, look at it from this angle, quietly on the side, etc. And your time, watch your time.
Yes, I think.
Also, before you go on to mechanics, guys, get your Grammarly coach or whatever, built-in coach, get your APA manual, etc. Stick to my computer. I'm telling you, etc. Because you're gonna need the APA change, etc. Make sure you get those. Okay, cool.
Thank you. Doug, you had something to add?
Yeah, I think communication is really important. Like everybody's saying, it's a really common theme. And having a cohort system really allows you to better understand the people you're working with. If you were just to be together for one term, you really wouldn't get that feel or sense for how people are communicating when they need help or they can offer more. It's also nice that you can speak to somebody and know that they have something coming up that means that they can't devote as much time. And then maybe you can support them a little bit more, or they can support you. You just have a better communication system that you wouldn't have normally. And you really strengthen that in the 3 years you're in the program. It's amazing how much you get to know people and you really develop these really strong bonds. So really take advantage of that. And really communicate whenever you start something new, really upfront, really early, what your expectations are. Meet frequently if you can, because you'll know when things are starting to go astray. So you don't want to find out the day it's due that somebody misunderstood the end date or the role that they had. So I think communication is really the important part of this.
Great, thank you. Thank you, everyone. There are two other questions. Let me see what. One was, what's the most challenging part? I think you answered, I think that came up through your work. And the other one, what cohorts are you in? I did give your bios with the cohorts, but just refresh 5, 2, 3, 2, 2, and 5. So it's a nice spectrum there. All right, I just want to thank you guys for spending your time. I know you all have busy schedules, probably twice as busy in a time of COVID. Under normal circumstances, but you know what they say, if you want to get the job done, ask a busy person. So thank you so much for your time and generosity and sharing your wisdom. Thank you so much for participants and the audience. We'll continue on this afternoon. We have our poster session, our famous poster session, and then we're going to have our showcase of our new cohort. So I'm going to sign out. And if you have any,
I still have mine.
Thanks, Mo.
I still have my poster.
oh wow,
Okay.
Yeah, everyone here has been to the poster session, and we have an exciting group coming up too. All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good luck, everybody.
Everyone,
Good luck.
Yes, good luck.
All right. Well, we're signing off.